I feel like Pixar and the MCU are constantly competing for who has more movies to rank. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video, a Pixar video, as I'm going to be ranking all 25 Pixar movies in a tier list style. Now, in the past, I've done a ranking of the movie straight up. This time, I'm going to do a little tier list, and then when Lightyear comes out, I think I'll do another straight up ranking from my least favorite to favorite. Before I get into this ranking, make sure to hit that like button, comment down below your ranking of the Pixar movies. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite? What do you think of Turning Red? Make sure to check out my review. I will link it up above. But without further ado, let's get into these tiers. All right, so the tiers I have today are best of the best, great, good, meh, and bad. My standard tiers for when I do these things. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Some Pixar movies are stinkers to me. Some I love. So I'm not going to be lying to you guys at all. This is genuine, authentic thoughts on every single one of these movies. So first up, we've got Brave. I think this movie's terrible. It's one of the worst Pixar movies. I'm going to go ahead and put it in bad. Not only is it extremely dull on rewatch and very hard to get through, but it doesn't have that Pixar magic in my opinion. It has a promise at the beginning, but once everyone turns into a bear, it just loses me completely. It is a very forgettable Pixar movie, and just one of their worst titles by far. Next on my list is going to be A Bug's Life, the second ever Pixar film. I actually like this movie. I think it gets, overlooked. Yes, it follows the Seven Samurai template, which obviously has been redone in Magnificent Seven, countless, Clone Wars episodes. A bunch of different movies and TV shows have adapted this story, but it's because it's timeless and it works. And I think the Bug's Life movie is good. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the good category. It just feels classic. The animation style it's that old vintage Pixar where when you go back and watch it makes you feel a little bit of nostalgia. And if there's any Disney World fans here, Animal Kingdom, It's Tough to Be a Bug. That show traumatized me as a kid, especially when the stink bug goes off. Whew. Next is Cars 2. I think this is what a lot of people would consider to be the worst Pixar movie. I actually think it's the second worst, but I'm going to put it in bad. I'm actually going to put it at the front of bad right there. This movie's awful. It's the worst Cars movie. The reason it's so bad is because it focuses on Tow Mater. He's basically the main character of this movie. Lightning McQueen takes a back seat. Lightning McQueen is the face of the Cars franchise, so I have no clue why this movie decided to put him on the bench, basically. Cars 2 is hard to get through. It doesn't feel like a Pixar movie. It feels like a very cheap, direct-to-video sequel to the first Cars movie, which is unfortunate. And we might as well get through the rest of the Cars franchise by the way they're randomly ordered here. Next is Cars 3. This is a much better movie than Cars 2, and honestly, I think it's my favorite Cars movie. I love the comeback story, the Rocky 3 storyline where Lightning McQueen's down and out. He has to train the newbie to try and come up and take his spot in a way, so I love storylines like that. I'm actually going to put Cars 3 in the meh category. Close to good, but it's still a meh movie. It's nothing special, but I would say it's meh because I think it's the standout of the Cars movies. It's way better than Cars 2. So the Cars franchise kind of started here in the middle, went down, and then it went back up with Cars 3. Speaking of Cars, I'm going to put that just behind Cars 3 because I think Cars is all right. There's a lot of nostalgia with this movie. Obviously, the song Life is a Highway is a certified bop, and it's probably the highlight of the Cars franchise, the one song that I really think of when I think Cars. It's not very rewatchable, and it's one that, I watched it as a kid, and I enjoyed it in theaters, and I love Lightning McQueen as a character, but the further I kind of thought about this movie and the older I got, I became more detached from it. I want to love this movie, I really do, but meh is the highest I can go with it. Next on my list is Coco, which this is like a sleeper Pixar movie, I feel. A lot of people might not even have it in their top 10. The soundtrack's a bop. I used to love this movie a little more than I do on my last rewatch over the summer. It felt a little bit for me, but it's still great. I'm going to put Coco in great right now. I think that, the twists and turns this movie has to offer are absolutely shocking. I love the way that it represents Dia de los Muertos. It's got one of the best soundtracks, one of the best villain twists, and I love the family aspect of the movie. Coco slaps. Remember me, though I have to say goodbye, remember me. Whew. If that doesn't get the tears flowing, I don't know what's wrong with you because the waterworks come out at the end of this movie. Next, we got Finding Dory, the sequel to Finding Nemo. This was a long-anticipated and long-awaited sequel. Finding Nemo, one of the beloved classic Pixar films. Finding Dory is actually pretty good. I'm going to put it above A Bug's Life. I think this movie kind of overhated, I might say, because I remember loving it when it came out, and then I got a little bit older and everyone was kind of like, oh, this movie sucks, and I was like, I don't think it does, honestly. I love the character of Hank and his dynamic with Dory. The third act is bonkers when they're driving the truck and they flip it off, and the Wonderful Life song plays, and this movie has a ton of heart, especially when Dory reunites with her parents. I think that it does its job as a Finding Nemo sequel. It obviously doesn't really focus on Nemo and Marlin as much. It's almost like a spin-off instead of a direct sequel to Finding Nemo because, again, it's all about Dory this time, who can be a little bit of an annoying character, admittedly, but I think this is an effective sequel that really pulls on the heartstrings. It has that Pixar magic still, in my opinion. Not as good as the first, but still really good. Next on my list is going to be Finding Nemo, the classic Pixar movie. This movie came out in 2003, and I started kindergarten around then, so literally every single year in school for 7, 8 years in a row, I watch this movie at least once or twice a year. Saw it in theaters. It's a near perfect movie in my eyes. I think the flaw I have with it now is not even a fault of the movie, but more a fault of me, because I've seen the movie so many times, it gets a little bit tiresome on rewatch, and that's really not a fault of the movie. That's just me having seen the movie 100 times, literally. The father-son story. It's got all the emotions of a Pixar movie that you really come to know and love. Even though in my last Pixar ranking, I had it a little bit lower, I still think it's one of the best Pixar movies, so I'm going to go best of the best with Finding Nemo. It's probably going to end up being at the back of that tier. I loved this movie so much for so many years. It's just because I've seen it so many times, it gets a little bit tired on rewatch, but I think it is one of the best Pixar movies, and it deserves a spot in that top tier. Next is going to be The Good Dinosaur, which is the worst Pixar movie. Really and truly, I would watch Cars 2 over this. I'm putting it at the front of bad right here. Let me try and do it. There we go. It tries to be like The Lion King. It tries to be like a lot of other projects. It's uninspired. It doesn't have the magical story or the Pixar animation, even in my eyes. Some sequences are beautifully animated, but it just feels so detached from Pixar. It's almost like a Blue Sky or DreamWorks movie, and they make great movies as well, don't get me wrong, but like this just is not Pixar magic in my eyes. There's not a lot of substance here, and this movie is dreadful to rewatch. Don't really care for the characters, and it's a very predictable story that really doesn't make me feel any emotions in the end. It's a shell of what Pixar should be in my eyes. Next on my list is actually Incredibles 2. Not The Incredibles 2, Incredibles 2. This movie is a damn good sequel. A lot of people's expectations were through the roof. After the first Incredibles, we had to wait 14 years, I want to say, to get the next one, so obviously, I was excited for this movie. Now, it's obviously not as good as the first one. It's really hard to reach that standard. I mean, you've got a movie like The Incredibles. The bar is set all the way out of frame in this camera. I think Incredibles 2 has its fair share of twists and turns. Elastigirl gets more of the spotlight. There's a lot to love with Incredibles 2. I think that it's a very worthy follow-up. I'm going to put it in great. I actually prefer it over Coco right now. I really dig this movie, and if you haven't seen it in a while, I urge you to go back and give it another chance, because I think this is a classic case of one of those movies where a lot of people really liked it when it came out, and then the social media, overall opinion on it kind of tainted the movie for some people, and then everyone, including me, would be like, oh, it's not as good as I thought, just because everyone kind of gets negative on it. But I urge you to go back and watch this movie if you haven't seen it since theaters or since 2018 or 2019, because it really does hold up on rewatch, and I think it's a worthy follow-up, especially after you watch the first one. It's a great double feature. Speaking of that first Incredibles movie, I'm going to go ahead and put it at the top of best of the best for now. It's a timeless movie. It's my favorite animated superhero film of all time. Just the fact that Pixar made this movie and it's its own original IP, it's not really based on anything, is spectacular. This movie is truly special. Brad Bird directs the hell out of it, but it's also got one of the most compelling villains, as we see Syndrome. He's a kid who looks up to Mr. Incredible, and he kind of gets screwed over by him, and then he makes it his life goal to come back and basically get revenge on this guy, make his life a living hell. So I love the fact that they flesh out the villain. Frozone's an awesome side character. It's one of the more quotable Pixar films. It's a ton of fun. It's a family adventure that holds a lot of emotional weight. Next, we have 2015's Inside Out, one of the more innovative Pixar movies when it comes to just blowing our minds with their original stories, because we're looking into a teenage girl's mind here, and her emotions have this adventure in her brain. They're controlling her. It is so creative, and this is really a testament to how great Pixar is when it comes to original stories. And I'd argue this is their last truly phenomenal original story. Coco obviously came out later, as well as a few more I'll talk about, but this movie is so damn good. The score by Michael Giacchino is immaculate, and I love how much emotional weight this has, especially with the character of Bing Bong. This is one of the saddest Pixar movies that pulls on my heartstrings, gets the waterworks flowing. I gotta go best of the best with Inside Out, and I'm gonna put it right behind Incredibles. I actually prefer this to Finding Nemo at the current moment in time. Inside Out is a really special movie. You guys should rewatch it if you haven't seen it in a while. Oh, hot take time. Next, we got Luca, the film that came out last summer. That was not for me. I fell asleep 10 times the first time I watched it. I kid you not. I watched it 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I was wide awake when I started the movie, and I just kept dozing off and having to rewind. There's nothing for me to really grasp to in this movie. I don't really care about Luca or his other friends in the film. I don't remember their names. It picks up in the last 20 minutes of the movie, but it was too little too late. I like the whole bike scene, but Luca, it's a shell of what Pixar used to be in my eyes. It doesn't have any of that true adventure, none of the magic that Pixar has. It didn't make me feel anything, and I don't know if that's because, again, it's going directly to Disney Plus, and the quality of Pixar has been decreasing lately. It almost feels like Disney's kind of made them take a little bit of a back seat. But I don't like this movie that much. I'm going to put it in bad. I'm going to put it, not at the worst of the worst. I'll put it here. I think it's better than probably the other movies that are right there. but Luca, not a fan. Next is Monsters, Inc., one of the true classic Pixar films from 2001. Not only is the soundtrack a bop and like the main opening theme is a certified banger, but Mike and Sully is one of my favorite Pixar Deweys. I have a Monsters Inc. shirt. It's a perfect story, really, and it's truly might be the most creative Pixar story I've got, where a town is powered by screams, and then by the end of the film, laughter is actually more powerful, and that's foreshadowed so well with Boo having that one scene where she's laughing. So it's one of the best screenplays in Pixar history, and the duo between Mike and Sully is just my favorite. Something about looking at the characters and the posters, even the colors from Monsters Inc., makes me so happy. I still haven't ridden that ride at Disneyland, but damn it, I want to so bad. This is a true Pixar classic adventure, and it's going at top of the best of the best for now. I adore Monsters, Inc. Next is Monsters University, a very worthy prequel, in my opinion, that gives us more insight into Mike and Sully's college life and learning about how they went to school to learn to be professional scarers, and the adventures that ensue is a lot of fun. It's like 22 Jump Street, but the G-rated Pixar version of it. And the movie's honestly a little overhated, a little overlooked. I'm going to go at the top of good. Right here. So it's better than Dory and it's better than Bug's Life, but it's almost in that great tier, I want to say. Next is Onward. This is, as of right now, Pixar's biggest hidden gem, even though, it can't really say hidden because most people have seen it. It's their most overlooked movie. It's the most underrated Pixar film. It's perfect in my eyes, and it's this brotherhood story that just hits me right in the chest, hits me right in the feels, because I have an older brother, so it directly resonates with me. I love the adventure that Ian and Barley go on in the movie, but at its core, it's a story about, moving on in life, also realizing that you can have like a father figure in your brother, and it's very emotionally resonant. I'm going to put Onward and Best of the Best. I'm going to put it right here. Not there. I'm going to put it right there behind Inside Out, but above Finding Nemo. I really love Onward, and a lot of people will say, oh, it's such a mid-Pixar movie, but I have a really fond appreciation for this movie, and it was actually the last movie I saw in theaters before the pandemic, so crazy how time works. All right, we're getting into some gold here. We're on a hot streak right now. Next is Ratatouille. I remember seeing this one in theaters and loving the movie, and it's a movie that I genuinely fell in love with over time. When I rewatched it back in 2020, that viewing really was transformative for me. Ratatouille is my favorite Pixar movie. I'm putting it at the top of Best of the Best. It goes between this and another movie we'll talk about in a second, but Ratatouille is a movie about chasing your dreams, never giving up, and it's about a rat basically becoming a chef, which, again, sounds crazy, right? But it directly relates to me wanting to chase my dreams, wanting to have this goal and giving it my all to achieve that goal. Anyone can cook. Le Festin, I say this every time I talk about Ratatouille. That song from this movie makes me so happy and overjoyed almost. I want to go ride that new ride in Epcot at in the France Pavilion to really see what it's all about. Feel like I'm actually a part of the Ratatouille movie. It's a perfect film. Next is Soul, a movie that I find really overrated. Tenet didn't even get nominated for Best Original Score, and this somehow won. It's a good score, don't get me wrong, but it's an overhyped movie. It's not terrible. It's just really, it's okay. I'll put it above the Cars movies. Like, it's a meh film. I'll put it like right here. It's meh, I don't really want to watch it ever again. It's serviceable. I think that it's just really overhyped for some reason. I like the music in it, and the soundtrack and the score, they're both good. The animation's absolutely gorgeous, but the story, especially the second act, completely loses me when it deals with this cat. I'm like, this doesn't really feel as profound as it's trying to be, because the movie wants to be so adult and mature, and then it feels like it's trying to cater to kids for a little bit. But overall, it doesn't feel like a kid's movie, and that's kind of what Pixar is. I know they've started to make more adult movies, but it's almost like they veered away from having something for both. This movie just doesn't really do it for me. I know a lot of people love it. Sorry if you guys do. Just my opinion. I want to be honest with you guys. Next is Toy Story 2. A lot of people I know actually say this is the best Toy Story movie, and I disagree, but it's still a damn good film. The Prospector is a great Pixar villain. Seeing the gang kind of become divided as Woody, is going off and maybe finding new friends, seeing where Woody's getting cleaned. Ooh. It's one of the most satisfying and one of the most gorgeously animated scenes ever. We also get to see that Zurg and Buzz Lightyear kind of homage to Luke and Vader. So I love Toy Story 2. It is one of the best Pixar movies, which a lot of them are. I would honestly put it probably above Onward and Nemo. Everything the best of the best. They're in an order right now, but I love every single one of those movies, and they could interchange pretty much any day. Ask me in June when Lightyear comes out, and this list could be different. Next is Toy Story 3, the creme de la creme of Pixar movies. I mean, right next to Ratatouille, I would say. This is the best Toy Story movie. Lotso Huggin' Bear is one of the best Pixar villains. Not one of, he is the best Pixar villain. The way that they have that emotional backstory where he gets left behind, so he thinks everyone else in that daycare should be left behind as well and not be able to escape. It's basically a prison break movie. Like, it feels like the great escape straight up at times. The ending is an emotional gut punch that makes me tear up every single time, because it's about moving on. It's like Andy goes off to college. You have to move on to the next chapter in life, and that can be extremely scary. For me, moving on is something that is hard and it's scary, and trying new things and changing makes me go out of my comfort zone, makes me uncomfortable, but Toy Story 3 addresses that, like, it's all going to be okay, you know? You can always have the fond memories of these certain chapters, but you got to go make new ones as well. I'm going to put Toy Story 3 right behind Ratatouille right now. I love both those movies so much. It's a constant back and forth for me. Next time, Toy Story 3 could be at the top. Those are the two top-tier Pixar movies to me, and the ones that resonate the most with me. Toy Story 3 is purely perfect. Next is Toy Story 4. I've soured on this movie over time. I used to really like it when I first saw it in theaters, and it's all right. It's passable. I don't hate it, but it's an unnecessary movie. I mean, Buzz is barely in it for crying out loud. The main gang takes a back seat. We've got a bunch of new characters. It's basically just a Woody story instead of a Toy Story, so that's kind of upsetting. I'm going to put this at the top of meh. You know, it's better than all the movies there, but unfortunately, it's really regressed for me over time as I've realized how perfect the Toy Story trilogy was and how unnecessary Toy Story 4 was. It's just soured a little bit over time. Next is the one that started it all for Pixar, the OG Toy Story. You already know this is going in best of the best. It's just a matter of where, which I'm going to think about here in a second. But the first Toy Story, it's one of the most rewatchable movies ever. It literally flies by. It's got like an hour, 20-minute runtime, I want to say, maybe even an hour 10. It's a very quick movie, but it's a classic story. You know, Woody and Buzz, you know, Woody gets jealous. They both end up on this adventure together, and by the end, they come back and they are friends. And one of the greatest callbacks in movies is when they take off with a rocket, and he says, "You're flying!" And he says, "That's not flying, it's falling," with style. Buzz kind of acknowledging that they've come full circle and they're buddies now. It's a very happy, classic, nostalgia-filled Pixar movie. Sid is an absolute menace when it comes to Pixar villains. I gotta go, honestly, right behind like Monsters, Inc. Like, I take the first Toy Story over Incredibles. That's how damn good this movie is. And I realize that the best of the best category is super filled, but Pixar has made some of the best animated movies of all time. They are no, like, slouch when it comes to them as a studio. Next is their latest film, Turning Red, which just hit theaters. I have a review I will link up above. Make sure to check that out. This movie might be the most bizarre Pixar movie on this list. I think it is definitely the wackiest Pixar movie. It's very absurd at times, but it also captures like puberty and the awkwardness of it all very well. It's a coming-of-age story at its heart. It's relatable to everyone because we all grew up in middle school and can pull different things from it, whether that's our relationship with our parents or not. I don't love the movie. I think it has its flaws. It's extremely on the nose with its metaphors to puberty. In a way that kind of got irritating, and I'm not crazy about the mother-daughter relationship. That again, the whole helicopter parent thing, just, it's not for me, and I know that it's trying to hit home this message, but making the mother in that movie even somewhat redeemable kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't hate the movie. I don't love the movie. It's honestly probably going to go in the back of good. So like close to meh. Check out my review for my full in-depth thoughts. And then there were only two. Next up on my list is Up, which my girlfriend Cam absolutely adores that movie. It's her favorite Pixar movie. I like Up quite a bit, and I'm going to put it in best of the best because the first 10 minutes wreck you, but the rest of the story is a perfect adventure. You know, adventure is out there. That's a message that hits home with me. I want to get that on a poster on my wall because adventure is out there. It's about, you know, taking risks and really having to understand that we only live once. There's a whole life out there, and if we didn't explore it, we're not really taking the full advantage of it. It's a gut-wrenching, emotionally romantic film. I love how Carl becomes this role model to Russell by the end of the movie. It's a very sweet and uplifting Pixar adventure that I think people kind of overlook. People are like, oh, the first 10 minutes is the only good part. I disagree strongly. It's one of Pixar's strongest efforts, and I'm going to put this like right in front of Inside Out right here. Like, this is a top-tier Pixar movie, and it's just tough when you get to the best of the best because there's so much quality gold from Pixar. And last but maybe least is WALL-E. This is one of my hot takes on Pixar, is that I don't love this movie like everyone else. I don't think it's bad per se, but I just don't think it's great. Like, I get the whole dialogue-less bit because he's a robot, and the messages about like bettering the environment and where Earth could be headed and the human population could be headed. I totally understand all of that. The story, to me, I just don't really connect with. And I know WALL-E Need is sweet. My girlfriend disagrees with me on this. A lot of people think I'm crazy for not liking this movie, but WALL-E's going in like the back of meh. Like, honestly, close to bad. But this is like just my opinions, and I don't care for WALL-E too much. It's one I rarely rewatch. It's very hard to get through, and it just falls flat compared to the other Pixar movies, especially from an emotional perspective, at least to me. But that's going to do it for my tier ranking of all the Pixar movies. Definitely let me know where you would place these movies in the comments down below. If you want to see me rank them straight up, I'll probably do that in June when Lightyear comes out. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button. Again, let me know your favorite Pixar movies in the comments down below. And again, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my Pixar coverage this weekend. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.